What is up, guys? I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're covering some more r/am I the butthole. If you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. And I hope you're having a great day so far. And with that being said, let's get straight in to today's stories. Much love, guys. Our first story comes from Lordor22. Am I the arsehole for refusing to help out my brother and his family when they're in need? My 28 female brother, 33 male, and his wife, 32 female, and their kids, 9 female, 7 male, and 5 male, ended up homeless 6 weeks ago after a lot of bad luck. They're currently staying with my parents while they're working things out. Everyone expected me to help out in some way, but I have not, and I do not plan to. The reason is, last year my brother and I had a fight. I was away on vacation, my brother was looking for something in my home, and I told him it was okay to get it while I was gone. He did more than that. He stayed in my home long enough for his kids to write and draw on my walls, pull up some of my carpet, break my couch, stuff my toilet with paper and left me with it overflowing, broke the shelf in my closet by climbing on it from the looks of what I saw, snooped through my room and throw my possessions around the place and plug out my freezer. They also pulled up some of the flowers I had in my yard. Oh, and I found some stains in the places. I never figured out what they were, but some things had to be replaced. My brother and the kids were the only people in my home when I was gone. I did not do it, but my brother denied it was them and I refused to pay me back ever since. I felt like there was a huge betrayal of my trust and a huge sign of disrespect. He never asked to pay it back in installments, he didn't offer to help clean it up, said no when I asked if he was going to. His wife then calls me and claims I did it on my own and set them up with it because I don't like my niece and nephews, which is not true. I have always loved them, but their behaviour in the last couple of years has been less than amazing. Not that it's their fault or anything, but I feel like after everything I don't owe them anything. I had to pay for all the repairs and replacements and a new paint job. They never once offered me anything. Am I the arsehole? And I gotta start off with this one by saying not the arsehole at all. I mean, they wrecked your home pretty much. How did they do that? It sounds like it wasn't a massive amount of time either. How did they come in and cause so much chaos in that time? Yeah, and to be doing all this going on, he must have been snooping all over the place. So there's no way you can trust him in the future if he's doing that sort of shit in your home. And then for the wife to phone you up and tell you that you did it on purpose because you don't like your nieces and nephews. How ridiculous is that? Wow. Let's have a look at the comments below to see what they say. Hello Friend says, not the arsehole. Your brother tried to gaslight you into thinking that you caused the damage and his kids drew on your walls and wrecked your home. Wow. And he doubles down without an apology. The nerve of your brother. Brer Khalifa says, not the arsehole. It is not your job to take care of them. Plus it looks like they have a problem with taking responsibility for their actions. He said that he needed one thing from your house and then lets his kids wreck your house and refuse to come clean about it. Not Cleaver says, not the arsehole for all of the reasons you listed. It's not about the money, it's about not owning up to the damage he caused your home. They can't afford to pay you now, but I'm sure you'd appreciate a heartfelt apology. Even if they thought that they were in the right, they could have still apologised for the damage. And Dilemma says you should say, I don't have the money to help out right now, since I had unexpected home repair expenses last year that threw off my budget. Not the arsehole. Now, I turn the first story to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? Would you help the brother out even though they cause your home this sort of damage? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 1. And this next story has brief mentionings of losing a little one, so just a pre-warning there, guys. This next story is from Turbulent Animator 69. Am I the arsehole for telling my brother-in-law he's a walking advertisement for abortion? My wife was more than 5 months pregnant when we learned that our daughter would not survive outside the womb. We were devastated as this was a very wanted pregnancy. My wife made the difficult decision to have an induction abortion. The procedure itself went as expected and she is physically fine. Emotionally, we are both still grieving. I was with her the whole time. Yesterday we had a family gathering. My family knew we were expecting and I had the horrible job of telling them that we lost the baby. My parents and sister expressed their sympathies. However, brother-in-law, who is extremely pro-life, throughout the night told my wife repeatedly that she was a murderer and that she killed her own daughter, and that all sorts of other awful things that made her feel much worse. I was appalled when I caught him doing this, and my wife was on the verge of breaking down all over. I yelled at him, pointing out that he'd gotten a DUI in the past that put another person in the hospital, and how he was working a low-paying job selling cigarettes that killed thousands of people every year at a convenience store, and how I needed to bail him and my sister out financially more than once for medical reasons. Then I ended with, if anything, you're a walking advertisement for abortion. Your mother probably wishes she aborted you. I took my wife home, furious. Then later I got a call from my sister. She apologised initially, saying that she realised what her husband said was out of line, but then tried to justify it by pointing out that he was raised to believe abortion was wrong. I should have been more understanding, and it was unfair of me to point out his past struggles when he had been doing better recently. I cussed her out and hung up, but now I'm wondering if I did go too far. Am I the arsehole for basically telling my brother-in-law he should have been aborted? Update, thank you all so much for the support. My sister called me a few hours ago and we talked. It turns out she didn't know what he actually said. He made it seem like he had just said he disagreed with abortion, which I would say is still unacceptable to tell grieving parents. But when I told her what he actually said, she was horrified. She apologised profusely and is now considering leaving him. There were a lot of other red flags in their relationship. She's now fully on our side and can't believe her husband could be so vile. How can someone lack so much compassion that you just don't say that sort of shit to people? Sometimes I'm reading these stories and there's always one every once in a while that sideswipes me, and that just shocks me to a point where I'm just like, the fuck, how can someone think like that? That think it's okay to speak to someone like that who's grieving the loss of a little one like that. Oh man. Let's have a look at the comments below to see what they say. Bryce Whale says, not the arsehole, I'm so sorry about your baby. Incompatible with life is one of the most devastating phrases in the English language. Your brother-in-law brought it on himself. How unkind of him to harass a grieving mother, and your sister isn't much better in defending him. Madrona PDX says, not the arsehole, your brother-in-law's attitude is incompatible with compassion and his timing is atrocious. There are some moments where the person who loses their cool and says something hurtful gets a pass, and having to terminate an unwanted pregnancy is up at the top of the list. Big hugs to you and your wife. Brother-in-law needs to attend his own life choices. Queen Oreo says, not the arsehole. Usually I'm not someone who agrees responding by going low or insulting, but seriously, screw this guy. He's an awful person. He's not your wife's doctor, child's doctor, you or your wife. He gets no say at all. If the loss of a child's life is so tragic to him, maybe some sympathy for the horrible choice you had to make should have been his first step. I'm so sorry for your loss. Bold Hyper says, not the arsehole. While some would say your reaction was over the top, you were grieving and he had the audacity to say your wife was a murderer when the baby wasn't going to make it. And Gray's Confused says, not the arsehole. I 100% agree with everything you said and I'm so sorry for your loss. Wow, an incredibly sad one there, but how would you have reacted to that brother-in-law? Would you have just tore him apart there and then, or would you have approached it a different way? Let me know in the comments below and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 2. And our next story is from TY Allergic Baby. Am I the arsehole for refusing to pay the medical bills for my roommate's son after he had an allergic reaction to eating my cookies? My roommate's son Sam, 4 male, is allergic to strawberries. He gets an allergic reaction only if he eats them. I recently made a batch of strawberry shortcake cookies. Some of them were in the jar on the top shelf. She mostly works remotely, but sometimes you have to go into the office for a few hours, 1 to 2 max. As I always work from home and the kid is really sweet, I don't mind babysitting. One day last week, I woke up to Sam screaming / crying bloody murder. When I ran into the kitchen, it was very obvious that he was experiencing an allergic reaction. It didn't seem severe, but his face was red and he had the cookies in his hand. I freaked out and called 911. They took the kid to the hospital. Turns out she banged on my door and yelled that she had to go to the office urgently, and she asked me to take care of Sam for an hour. He was already fed and all I had to do was look after him. I guess I was deep asleep and didn't hear her. Sam was playing in the living room, saw the cookies and went for it. My roommate is now mad at me because 1, I was supposed to look after him, and 2, I called 911 instead of using the EpiPen which is kept in the living room. In the past, the banging on the door thing has worked a couple of times, but this time I genuinely didn't hear her. She also explained about the EpiPen and how it works, but I freaked out and I forgot about it. She now expects me to pay for the medical bill. I have obviously refused to. She's going to go broke and she is blaming me. Yeah, the real arsehole is the American healthcare system. Still, who is right here? Am I the arsehole? You've been kind enough to look after this kid in the past, but to expect you to look after the kid and just literally shout at you that you need to look after the kid when you're asleep, didn't come to you and confirm it or anything, just expected you and ran out the door. That's bullshit. She can't do that and expect everything to be rosy. And regardless, even if you use an EpiPen, I think you still have to get checked afterwards, right? It's just to prevent them from dying there and then. She would have still had to go to the doctors to get medical advice of some sort, and I assume you have to pay for that in America too. You have to pay for everything else, right? You're totally in the right. This is all your roommate's fault, and hopefully the child is all good now. Poopsie66 says, not the arsehole. She didn't get confirmation from you. She shouldn't have left. And even if you have used the EpiPen, you still need to have him checked out by a doctor. This is real life, not a movie. Ardeek says, not the arsehole. You can't just bang on a door and shout at someone that they're in charge of a kid. You need to make sure they're awake, upright, and agree to it. It sucks for her, but she's a big ass for not handing the kid off properly. The rest of it wouldn't have happened if she had, right? Also, an EpiPen buys time for proper medical treatment. You still need to get checked out / treated, etc. after using the EpiPen. Astrology Prodigy says, not the arsehole. You were sound asleep. She knocked on your door, shouted at you to watch her child and left. No agreement. No actual conversation about leaving the child in your care. Suppose you left out during the night to visit a special friend. The mum didn't even have confirmation that you were home. I don't think that you were responsible for the medical bills. You clearly weren't even aware you were supposed to be watching him at the time. And Double Stitch says, by chance you happen to be getting a response from a Redditor with life-threatening fruit allergies. Your roommate has a son with a disability. Yes, life-threatening allergies are an ADA covered disability. She's responsible for keeping him in responsible hands, and no, banging on a sleeping adult's door and leaving the premises without receiving an answer is not adequate. Office emergencies are difficult matters, it's true. Usually it's possible to navigate that with adequate preparation. Work out contingency plans with a supervisor, with HR, and with a sitter. Work out a procedure for securing allergens. Train the adults in anaphylaxis response protocol. Given how this child is only 4, this is probably the first time he's raided food from a top shelf. Maybe that could have been anticipated from a growth and curiosity / climbing abilities, in which the bulk of the responsibility rests with his mother for predicting that and making new arrangements such as a child-safe lock on the cabinet doors. You did forget to use the EpiPen, which is a major omission that might have resulted in his death, worst case scenario, or significant medical complications. Under normal circumstances, that would have put this in everyone sucks here territory, but this emergency woke you up from a sound asleep while you had no idea you were alone in the residence with this child. You got blindsided, and you getting blindsided was a result of his mother's bad decisions. Not the arsehole is heartbreaking, but this wasn't your fault. Suggest putting this sequence of events in writing ASAP and send it to the roommate via email. It'll also be good to either have a household meeting and work out better safety plan, or else start looking for a new apartment. Now, what do you guys think of this story? I know a couple of you have fruit allergens as well, so it'd be interesting to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 3. And our next story is from Physical Loss 7706. Am I the arsehole for cussing and getting drunk in front of my kindergarten students? I'm a kindergarten teacher. I teach in-person classes that are socially distanced, as well as online classes. Last weekend was my 27th female birthday. I went to a restaurant with a couple of friends for outdoor dining. While we were there, 2 mums came in with their children and are seated behind me. I recognise them as students in my in-person class. They say hi to me and I say hi back, but then don't interact further. Through dinner, I'm just enjoying my time with my friends. I have a few glasses of wine and get a little tipsy. Not rowdy or obnoxious or anything. I'm conversing normally with my friends, occasionally using cuss words like fuck or shit or damn, not excessively, just the way some people would in everyday conversation. Maybe a little more than I would have if I were not tipsy, but again, I'm not speaking loudly or anything, just having normal conversations with my friends. One of the mums then comes over to me and reminds me that my students were there and that I shouldn't be drinking and cursing in front of them. Since I'm their teacher, it was my job to set a good example to them. I just told her I was off the clock and that if it was bothering her, she could move or stop listening to me. She got all huffy and they soon left. Earlier this week, I was called down by the principal, who was with that mum in his office. She was angry and complained that I was setting a bad example for my students, and now her daughter was using some of the same words I was using, saying that if her teacher can say it, so can she. He asked for my side of the story and I just explained exactly what happened. Given that she verified my story, he told her that I was not their teacher at the time, and since I wasn't doing anything wrong, they couldn't control my behaviour off the clock. She protested a bit but eventually left, but called me a terrible teacher. I thanked the principal for backing me up, but then he suggested maybe that one time I should have just stopped drinking and using foul language. I really didn't think this was a problem, since I wasn't acting out, just talking casually and enjoying a couple of glasses of wine. But am I really the arsehole for drinking and using foul language in front of my students? What off the clock? Edit, I was not loud or belligerent or excessively drunk. I had 2 glasses of wine, and when I say I was tipsy, that was a bit of an exaggeration. It takes more than 2 glasses of wine for me to start feeling anything. I wasn't screaming obscenities, I was just using slightly foul language in casual conversation. E.g., the news is shit. It's too damn hot to be fall. I think again this is one of those stories that could potentially go both ways, and that's mainly because of the fucked up world we live in right now. People get pulled up for all sorts of stupid things these days. I mean, you put a wrong post on Twitter these days and it gets reported back to your workplace and you can get in trouble for it. And I know it's stupid. That's stupid to me anyway. As long as you're not like promoting terrorist organizations or something like that. If you're just swearing on your social media, who gives a shit, right? So I'm personally going to go with and not the arsehole, because your work life and personal life should be separated. I mean, you wasn't doing nothing massively wrong in my opinion. The parents of those children need to take a step back and say, look, she's not your teacher at the moment. She's just living a normal life outside of work, and not make it a social norm for like you to have to be acting like you're at work when you're outside doing your own personal stuff, you know. My nieces and nephews pick up foul language from even in school, you know, from other kids as well. But I think it's right to teach them that those words are bad words and not to use them. And they tell me off for swearing, you know. So they know what words are bad because they've learnt it. They know not to use those words, which I think is great. But again, I definitely can see with the way the world is and some people's views that the teacher might be in the wrong in this situation. But let's see. Let's go to the comments below to see what they say. Nerea Bo says, not the arsehole. They can't expect you to be a teacher 24/7. Also, it's a nice teachable moment the mothers could have used, but chose not to. Number 1, words don't have power unless you give them power. Fuck is just a 4-letter word, no different than ball. 2, teachers are people too. Great comment. AC Bacon 99 says, not the arsehole. It's honestly my biggest pet peeve that people don't think teachers have a life outside of school. You're allowed to have a life. This mum needs to back the heck off. Pie Zombie 3 says, as someone with experience in teaching, I think everyone sucks here. Sure, you weren't on the clock, but you have to understand that there were people related to your work. If I saw my boss and his kids at a restaurant and got drunk and started cussing, I'd expect a meeting the next day. At the same time though, there isn't really anything wrong with cussing, and it's the mum's job to parent the kid anyway. You can do what you want when you're off the clock. Just don't be surprised if it comes back to bite you again in the future. Be more aware of social expectations associated with your job. Fuzzy Kit Kat says, slight, you're the arsehole here. The professional thing to do would have been to stop swearing, move tables so you're out of sight / hearing the students, or gone to a different bar to finish up the night. Kids don't understand what off the clock means, and you're just as much of their teacher in the classroom as you are outside of it, in their eyes. Only Ferris says, you didn't do anything wrong technically, but you could have done something right and chose not to. Have you ever seen Bad Santa when the mum brought the kid to meet Santa while he's on his lunch break? Santa flips out and screams that he's on his lunch break. He wasn't wrong either, but he's still a dick. That's you. Meal Team 60 says, gentle, you're the arsehole. I have a school-age kid and they do idolise their teachers. I honestly can't imagine trying to explain their teacher, especially kindergarten, using bad words in front of them. The drinking wouldn't matter so much, unless you were much drunker than you thought. I would never have contacted your boss about it, but you probably should watch your mouth around small children, even if you weren't a teacher. I really have the feeling that all the not the arseholes are non-teachers who live in worlds where they are off the clock. The second you see kids from your school, you are their teacher, so you're the arsehole. Remember too, most states, moral turpitude laws are so unclear that boards will often use them to get rid of teachers who they feel do not uphold the morals of the district / community. It's a nice way for them to weed out those who don't have what it takes. If you can't change your behaviour because you see kids that are your students in a restaurant, you aren't in the right mindset for the job. Next time, do one of 2 things. Go to a restaurant that is far away from your district, or shut up and act the part of teacher you. Hypocrite says, everyone sucks here. I was leaning to not the arsehole, but you seem to be arguing pretty hard in the comments that you bear absolutely no responsibility here. Mum should absolutely not address this with you or the school because you're a person who can enjoy a personal life. Little kids will always idolise you as the teacher though. Seems like your attitude towards that is a giant fuck you, I'm off the clock. It's not hard to be a little sensitive to kids' needs in the real world. I don't know if my opinion's changed or not. It's a really difficult one. And I can kind of see both sides of the argument here. It's really difficult. So I'd love to know what you guys think of this story. If you was the mum at that table with the kids, how would you have dealt with that situation? Would you have dealt with it? Would you approach the principal about it? Would you approach the actual teacher? Or would you have just educated your kids? Really difficult one. Let me know what you guys think below. And don't forget to vote on that poll in the description for story 4. Once again, guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you did enjoy today's stories. And if you did, you know what to do. Hit that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. Always a pleasure to have you around, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. You have a great day now. Take care. Much love. Goodbye.